I'm Africah Harrigan for Legit TV. I'm in downtown Charlotte Amalie at the Capitol Building, in which the Committee on Culture, Historic Preservation, Youth and Recreation will discuss and vote on Bill number 30-0023 to require an assessment of the cadastral and land records housed in the Lieutenant Governor's office. Can you just give us a brief synopsis of the bill that was just passed?
Surely. The Bill 30-0023 that was passed in the Committee on Culture, Historic Preservation, Youth and Recreation speaks to the cadastral records of the territory, and that includes land records. Land and cadastral records, and that is housed in the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. It calls for an inventory every 5 years, and that with the collaboration of the Department of Planning and Natural Resources, which by our code requires the department to, in fact, carry out the requirements of archival management and the protection of our records. This will assist in more transparency. It will give the community a greater trust in the Office of the Lieutenant Governor that, in fact, they're doing their stewardship in protecting and managing and on a daily basis, as well as the entry data for all new parcels, and that the records of our past and our present and the future that can be accessible to the public, and those that are in need of repair, of course, will be in the process of conservation, and that in addition to that, they will work with the Kingdom of Denmark, the Danish National Archives, the United States, U.S. National Archives, because in the Treaty of 1917, that was a requirement that the United States and the Kingdom of Denmark will protect, preserve, and in fact make available to the people of the Virgin Islands their records. And for too long, our citizens have complained about inconsistency as it relates to the accessibility of these records, and this act or this law makes some attempt to address those concerns.
The bill passed with a vote of 4 yeas and 3 absent. Senators also considered the findings and proposed solutions to the challenges of record management pertaining to land and boundary disputes, land rights, property and cadastral records on the island of St. John.
Well, I am extremely pleased that this hearing was called today. We were able to bring together the experts, the authorities, all the stakeholders that have to do with the preservation of information and archives for the government. And we heard some very interesting things. Folks were respectable, but we know that there is there's a void in there. And one of the things that came out is that there's not enough staff. And my suggestion for that was to look at not just those positions, but positions in government overall that are revenue generating, and that we're able to say and justify that we need more personnel, and the personnel itself would pay for that position because the work that they're doing is going to pay for itself. And the Lieutenant Governor's office just delineated how much money they bring in, over $100 million. So it just makes sense that we will have a properly staffed office. The bill itself has to do with the making sure that every 5 years there's an assessment of the records. We've heard from the testifiers that these records sometimes are so old that you can pick it up and they start to disintegrate into your hands. And so by doing this, by keeping up every 5 years with our records, we preserve them. We deal with issues of transparency and accountability, which is the 2 words that you hear a lot that people want from government. So I'm really satisfied that we were able to cover those grounds today. And now, as you probably hearing in the background, we're hearing from those who are affected directly by cadastral records that may not be up to date and inaccessibility to those, and that leads to persons taking land that is not theirs. And so again, it's helpful to hear from those who are affected. As policymakers, that's the only way we can create policy that is fair and that is needed.
Thank you for tuning in to Legit's coverage on a meeting held by the Committee on Culture, Historic Preservation, Youth and Recreation. Also, you can follow the Legislature of the Virgin Islands on YouTube by subscribing to LegVI1 and on Twitter at LegislatureVI. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Africa Harrigan for Legit TV.